Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast, the podcast, The High Ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce Hendricks, joined always with the great Cooper Klein, and we're here to talk about. Actually, I don't even want to say exactly what we're here to talk about because we don't know how we're going to split this up yet. Well, we have five guys on our docket, so there will be five dudes that are talked about if you're watching the YouTube with us wearing these clothes. But I don't really know exactly how this is going to get split up. But we're excited to dive in. I think this is a really fun group. This is our first kind of time sitting down and doing this many guys in this cycle. And we're also, a month and a week basically away from the draft. So it's starting to kind of heat up a little bit. We're probably going to have to start at some point soon doing more than one pod a week, which is kind of our pace right now. But also at the same time, I'm like, I'm happy. I'm happy with the work we've been doing and the pace we've been at. So hopefully you guys are enjoying, the kind of the once a week content we've been doing. But before we get too into this group of guys and kind of the intrigue with them, Coop, my friend, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. My wife and I have been planning our honeymoon like over a year after we got married. So I'm like worn out from like the stress of of planning. I hate planning. It's the most draining thing in the world, but very much looking forward to going somewhere cool and having a honeymoon. So it's worth it, I guess. Um,
Yeah, that's so real.
but
That's like I can't
yeah,
even. I'm planning a wedding for this summer, and that's so real. It's like you're like I'm excited, but also let's be done, please.
let's just get this over with. I'm so like we eloped and our wedding planning was way too much. It was way too much for me. I can't imagine doing like a full wedding. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. When we're doing not to get too into this, but we're doing a little bit of like not destination's not the right word because it's way more affordable than that. We're broke, but it's a little bit out of the way. It's not like just in our backyard. And so it's definitely a little
Mm.
bit of a challenge at times. But all right, let's dive into some guys. I want to start with Koa Peat. Koa Peat measured at the combine. He measured at 6'7" without shoes, with 6'11" and 1/4 wingspan. That's an 8'8" standing reach for him. I would say those are fine numbers. I mean, probably real forward size, not very real like big man size. Which is again fine. I think, and I haven't like checked this against his measurements, but the person he reminded me of most of physically was Rui Hachimura. And Rui being a list 6'8" with I believe a somewhat positive wingspan, that kind of fits with that a little bit for me. I think athletically there's some similarities there too, but Koa was a big time high school recruit. In fact, out of high school, I believe was rated higher than his teammate Braden Burries, even though Braden is almost certain to go higher in the draft than him. He's a January 2007 birthday, which means he's 19 years old. He will turn 20 years old about halfway through his rookie season, and his rookie season will be his age 20 season. During his age 19 college season, he played in 36 games. He started all 36, played about 28 minutes per game, averaged 14.1 points on 52.8, 35, 62.3 shooting splits, grabbed 5.6 rebounds, 2.6 assists, zero point 0.6 steals, zero point 0.7 blocks, 1.6 turnovers, and committed about 2 fouls. For some more advanced stats, really good 7.4 BPM, not like elite, but good. 24.4 usage rate is solid, especially for a bigger guy. But 53.7 effective field goal rate, 55.7 true shooting. Neither of those are great. I do want to give the caveat already that some of these numbers are affected by the fact that Arizona was also like it was clearly a scheme thing to not really try to make risky passes and to just get the ball on the rim and trust and basically say like we have a better chance of getting a shot up that maybe you make, maybe you don't, but having an opportunity to offensive rebound it than making a maybe riskier pass and turning it over. Like a better chance at 2 shots and one of them being mediocre than no shots at all. That was clearly part of the math for this Arizona team. But you didn't only have a 16.7 assist rate, 13.3 turnover rate, 1.6 assist turnover. Again, for like a forward type, that's not a bad number by any means. 2.5 block rate, 1.3 steal rate. Neither of those are super exciting. Same with his 12.5 defense rebound rate, but his 9.1 offense rebound rate, okay. 42.7 free throw rate, pretty solid. He dunked 53 times. So some of those athletic indicators are good. He shot 69.7% on 201 close twos, 33.5% on 158 long twos. That is way, way too many long twos. Now, some of that, again, is that Arizona context, but some of that is just like he has a history and a track record of fairly poor shot selection. 62.3% on 162 free throws, not very good. And then again, he did shoot 35%, but only on 1.13 point attempts per 100. Not really a shooter right now. Coop, how do you feel about this statistical profile as you look at it? Like, does anything jump out to you? Is it like positive, negative? Just to me, this feels like I just feel very whelmed by it. Like nothing really pops. Like I'm not really excited by any individual number other than, he did score some points at the collegiate level, which is nice. But does anything to you really stand out?
I just I think I actually just felt underwhelmed by like the level of play that Koa could have some games. Like there were some games he would just back cut you to death. He'd kill you on the boards. When he was able to be like the fifth best guy on offense, I think he really thrived. And when teams could match up with Arizona's size, when they could push Krivas out of the paint a little bit, when they could pack the paint like Kansas really could, just had so much size. Like a guy like Bryson Tiller, just like really able to be a bother. I think he really struggled. And that's my thing with the mid ranges is some of it is very obviously just, hey, we have better offensive rebounders than you at every position, and if you take a bad midi, then we're gonna get the rebound. Like there's a good chance we're gonna get the rebound because we're bigger and more athletic. And like Krivas is really good. You have size at every position. Really like great hustle guards like Burries and Jaden Bradley. But some of it was also just he would get the ball with a half advantage created for him, and then he'd rip it, and then he'd lose the advantage and couldn't finish on the inside with any craft. And so he'd immediately he could kind of stop and like pump fake a little, but if you didn't bite on it immediately, he's fading. He's fading, or he's pulling up into a midi. He's just far too quick to rely on that mid range, and I get it. That's part of the scheme, but when they played Michigan, who is the team that can match them with size, he's so outclassed. I think he wasn't bad, put up 16 points, but he took 17 shots, like 17 twos, and went 5 for 17 and was forced into taking 11 mid-range shots. Like that's a win. He went 2 for 11 from the mid-range against like a real team with NBA size. And I worry that if he I want to save the rest for our actual value discussion, but the stats just very whelming. The mid-range stuff is good and bad, but he didn't have good enough touch for the amount he took. And I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I agree with you. He for what it's worth, you mentioned that it felt like it dropped off against top 50 comp, and it did. Against the best teams, his efficiency dropped, fairly strongly. Now his offensive rebound rate went up. Block and steal rates mostly stayed the same. Same with assist and turnover rates. Assist rate dropped a little bit, but his efficiency just fell out. He was a worse finisher and a worse long two shooter against that top level competition, which is, a concern. I think the place most people like the sell for Peat coming in was like this, high energy kind of like hustle big, who was also kind of like a star bet because he did take a lot of these off the dribble jumpers in his AAU stuff and in high school. I actually think for me, I want to start with the defense. I felt pretty strongly that defensively, I think there's some real kind of projection in terms of his perimeter defense, which the athletic numbers don't suggest. Again, the low steal rate's a concern. I don't think he was like great in a lot of like help scenarios, but I thought his short area quickness really popped. He's really, really strong with an ability to handle bumps. And even though he's not like crazy, crazy long, he has okay feel for how to use his length. So like, I think I think that he is the bet for Pete as overall, the actual bet is that he's actually kind of like this bigger wing forward, and I'll talk about that offensively a little bit too. But I thought about tweeting this. I can't remember if I actually did or not. But like I actually think he's more likely to be like a wing in the NBA than a Caleb Wilson. Um, that doesn't mean I think he's a better prospect than Caleb Wilson. Far, far, far from it. But I think he kind of has like some okay movement skills that combine with strength to be like a solid 3-4 defender. Again, like he doesn't have like screen nab, like that's not in his game. And again, the help instincts are pretty rough, but I think he was pretty engaged overall defensively. I think uh, 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 he's he's okay in terms of like just kind of moving his feet and how he handles bumps, especially against stronger creators. But I will say, like, it's not like the ground coverage is good. Like he's not going to be a good closeout guy. He's not like impactful as a help defender. His role is really narrow, which is rotational. Again, the rotational 3-4 defender. But I do think there is a role there, and I think he could do that well enough. Again, I don't. This is good and bad. The person he reminded me of the most, and this is even defensively, was Rui Hachimura. Rui Hachimura was also a really unproductive defender, mostly kind of an inside scorer. Now, Rui has developed into like a crazy elite shooter, and I don't think that'll be Koa. And I don't want to, again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I guess what I'm saying is, I think there's a role there for him defensively that's not undersized big. I think he can actually do some perimeter stuff defensively. And I also think he can do that while being, contributing to rebounding. I thought he was a solid box out guy. His awareness is kind of up and down, but not bad. I thought his effort was good. This goes back to AAU stuff, but I mean, he was on a really good Arizona team that's well coached, and like he was not like Azulis to Bellising with like nonsense defense because he had Omar Bio behind the play or whatever. No, he was way more real in terms of what he was actually bringing to the floor. I thought defensively, which I think is a solid place to start if you're talking about making him like this is a bet as a rotational forward. Does that kind of compute with you, Coop? Where were you at the defense?
Yeah, I think that was what was really hard for me watching him was at first you're like, oh, this guy's like he's a small big, right? And you kind of have to like, but he's not like dominating on the rebounds. He's not like blocking every shot inside. He's not super mobile with super fast hands, and he's not everywhere. But then you watch him on the perimeter, he moves pretty well for this kind of size and class of guy. Like pretty, I mean, other than the last guy who we'll talk about, pretty clearly the best perimeter mover out of the bunch here. I think he slides well. I think he like holds up and switches all right. He's not great, but he's good at using his strength to just kind of like bump you out of the way, and he can stay in just enough to switch a little bit and be like. I thought he was really good in Arizona's like swarm scheme. Like the second you would drive, he can like pounce down on you. He wasn't the best at closing back out after that, but he could get in, get out enough if if you didn't have like an elite playmaker on the drive. His length, his size, his athleticism, I think was really bothersome. And I think that will be like, he could be a good nail guy, with real practice. I think he could like execute NBA schemes as a perimeter player, right? But he's not going to be some like keep a lid on the rim 4 or like a small ball switch everything 5. But I think he can almost play like a Jay Crowder kind of defensive role if he continues to grow and like work on his stance and work on his footwork and sliding his feet a little better, and like if he really locks in, because like you said, there's some moments where he's just not all there, but for the most part I think he was really solid, and he could like get to the point where defensively he's like a plus NBA defender, not like a plus guy. I don't think he's like dominant in any one way, but he was good at enough things to see the base work and see what he could build on and to get better with.
The way I would put it is I could see a world where defensively he looks okay in the playoffs. Not great. Like I don't think he's going to be Dean Wade. I don't think he's going to be like where he's out there just for defense, just to smother guys. And I don't think he's going to be like Scotty Barnes or Jaden McDaniels or anything like that. But he reminded me a little bit of like late career Marvin Williams when Marvin was on the Bucks. Like now he played a little bit more five at that time than I expect. I expect Koa to, but I do think defensively there's stuff there. Offensively, the package is almost great if he could shoot, but he is really far away as a shooter. Despite taking so many, I think the touch is awful. Like I think he has no touch. I think he has no touch around the rim. I think he has very poor touch in the mid range, and he has very poor touch from three. Right now on his jump shot, he is very reliant on jumping way up and covering ground vertically. And he is a good vertical athlete. Now that's another thing. That vertical athleticism does not show up at all defensively. He does not jump out of a back pedal. He does not sprint into jumps. He is just a really strong 2-foot leaper, like right around the rim, which is great, but it's just not, it doesn't really project to defensive dominance by any means. But it kind of like his jumper is weird because it kind of looks like a one motion, but it becomes a two motion because he gets to the top of that jump and all the energy dies. And it becomes all about his touch. And when you combine that with him having awful touch, it's just like he's gonna have to completely rework the jumper, I think, to be all about kind of fluidity of and transfer of motion. And I just think that's really far away. There's a little bit there with in terms of like his confidence as a mid-range shooter that you hope can maybe project to him being again like an okay corner shooter. I don't think Rui Hachimura again has become like one of the best shooters in the league, but we've seen guys like this before who are like pretty bad college shooters, but very willing shot makers at the college level become okay just shooters in the NBA. It would take a lot of work, but from what I've heard, like I've heard pretty solid like intel stuff on Koa. And again, I don't want to get too into that, but like there's a chance. I don't want to write it off. And again, if he shoots, I think a lot of the the offensive package makes a lot of sense. I would say a pretty rough like on the move passer or anything, but like he's just kind of versatile in terms of his ability to score in a very like I'm going to throw this name out at you, Coop, a very like Dylan Brooksy way, where it's like now Brooks was like a monster shot maker, and that's not who Koa is, but it's like Brooks is just someone who kind of found a way. Like he just kind of got buckets in college, and just like every once in a while he'd post up a smaller guy, and then he'd drive and he'd use his physicality and these weird pickups to, find a way to get an angle to the rim, even though he was super under athletic. Koa is not like super under athletic. I mean, he dunked like again, like I said, 55 times or something like that. Like he's a really good like lob catcher. He can, gather strong. He's pretty right-handed as a finisher right now, but he's really strong and he can drive. He gets his shot blocked a lot, which is not great because he's just not, crazy vertically explosive out of like off the dribble. But like, aesthetically with his big physical frame, he's willing to carve out space. Like there's some stuff there that pops, but I do kind of worry that he's just not actually all that good at anything. I'm saying all this stuff is like, oh man, there's potential there. Like you can see the mold of like a really solid, just kind of dirty bucket, make open shots, and do his job defensively, role playing wing. But is that who he really is? Like Coop, where are you at with his offense?
And the only thing he's actively good at the moment is like cutting in scheme cuts and scoring because the defense forgot about him because he doesn't shoot the ball, right? Against teams that like actually remembered he exists and like didn't sell out to like go throw a bunch of guys at Mateus Krivas, it's like he looks actively worse. And there's some moments of like he goes out and he just like finds a way, right? Like he's got this like there's some of that, but it's also like a lot of it is just like him kind of driving and bully balling into someone and then like they do not have the balance he does or the strength to stay on him and he can just kind of stay on balance just enough to put the ball up into the basket. The mid-range shooting is awful. I think it's maybe like it's one of my least favorite ends of a possession ever is watching Koa like, oh, that's a really cool roll. Oh, he's like cutting really well, and then he gets stonewalled, and there's no moves, no bag, instant fade, and it's like, okay, well that's like what do we? Why even put that shot up at that point? I get it, it's their scheme, whatever. It pisses me off. It drives me crazy. Um, this is a guy who like he does remind you so much of Rui. So be like Rui and stay in college for a few more years and like learn how to actually get these dirty buckets. Learn how to be this guy and like come out and then once you're actually efficient and you've figured out the shooting and you've drilled all this stuff, then come out because he's so far away that he could like offensively, I think he's so far away from any role that's not just KJ Martin that he could fall out of the league. Like it's really rough in that way unless somebody's going to truly buy into him in this like star bet way. And who in the league has the space or time for that at this point? Uh, Nobody. It's a really rough transition to the NBA for a guy like this.
Yeah, yeah. I think I just as the player he's most like Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Is that who this guy is going to be? Where it's all the aesthetic skill and defensive upside that's just never actually none of it is actually NBA good. Now RHJ is, had some years where he's been such a good overseas pro that he probably could have tried to come back over, maybe, here and there. But yeah, I think the pushback is that so in AAU, he played a lot more with the ball. He ran pick and roll. He self-created multiple dunks in the half court. Um, he's just this big bruising driver. He's always been productive. And again, he managed to be productive on a very, very good team this year. This Arizona team was really, really good, really tough to deal with. Obviously, they eventually ran into a buzzsaw in Michigan. That as we talked about when we talked about Yaxel is one of the best teams in recent memory. There's a reason that there's at least two more guys from that team we're going to talk about, if not three, depending on if Cadeau stays in. And if I make Coop talk about Namari Burnett or Roddy Gale. I just, there's arguments here, right? And again, it's that kind of level of confidence and production, like, is just, there's just like enough kind of feel here, like in terms of, and again, it's not high feel in terms of like, he's not a crazy quick processor. He's not some like elite decision maker. He has some plenty dumb turnovers in there, but like just feel in terms of like he kind of knows when to fight or like when to fight for a steal or when to leg whip as the ball is thrown up above him, and he can get just a little bit better seal for a high low pass, when to flatten out to the dunker spot, when to cut in for a lob, when to realize that he's not going to get a pass and that he needs to just start boxing out for the offensive rebound. Like all that stuff, like I think is really indicative of someone who just has some kind of natural basketball talent, like just someone who's played and been productive. And you wonder if that can translate despite the nature of what he's going to do being weird. Again, like he will not get post ups against like size guys in the NBA. Like as a post scorer, he's really limited. It is entirely beast smaller guys, shoot turnaround fades. He's very similar to Caleb Wilson in that way. He was more efficient, I believe, in post up scenarios than Caleb Wilson. But I don't think it's like we talked about with Wilson. I don't think it's like a meaningful thing. I think he'll be able to beat some smaller guys. Like you want to put maybe even like the real upside for him would be that he could even be some like good wing defender, like if an Asar Thompson is on him, that he could beast him a little bit because Asar's like physical strength is just not good enough. Like Koa is legitimately strong. He has those shoulders. He doesn't have enough bend right now to access it, but he's willing to seek contact and try to go through guys as a driver. If he could just get a little bit more flexible and he can access it, like all those paths are great and they're all realistic. And it's why I don't want to like fully write off Koa, but it's all hinged on he has to make shots. He is not good enough at anything to not be a shooter in the NBA. And I believe that really strongly. Like he has to be at least an average to slightly above average shooter in simple catch and shoot scenarios to be really valuable. Now, if he does that, if he can take, if he's a 3-4 and he can take 6 threes per 100 and shoot 36% consistently, then he's probably a pretty valuable NBA player because he can guard a little bit, he can rebound, he can make simple plays. Like, is it crazy to say that there's a world? And obviously, Tobias Harris is coming off a really good playoff run, so this guy is his where you would rank Tobias Harris in the league amongst power forwards has varied for a long time over the course of his career. And right now, it's probably pretty darn close to an all-time high. Like, is it absurd that he has a Tobias Harris level career where he's a starter for a decade? It's not completely out of the realm of possibility to me. But when I think about where I'm willing to bet on that, it's not super high. Like, if he is in my top 20, I'd be fairly shocked. I have him. I'm kind of redoing how I do my tiers. I had them labeled like usual second round. I don't know if I'd say like this is usually a second rounder, but I would say the way I would phrase it is my expected value for him is that I expect him to be a below average replacement level rotation player or like out of the league after a few chances. This is a guy who could have a dominant European career. Again, there's these pathways, but the pathways are not star pathways. Like, I don't think there's a world Koa Peat is like a star in the NBA. I'd be incredibly surprised. But if we're looking back in 8 years and we're like, man, this is a really good playoff seventh man on the Detroit Pistons next to the Cade Duran combo, I'd be like, okay, yeah, like, you can just kind of come in and make shots and kind of get some dirty rebounds. And again, you can kind of just see some of the natural feel stuff combined with his physical strength and solid toughness just translating to NBA basketball. Like, feel plus strength plus at least some modicum of functional athleticism, which he has with his short area lateral quickness, and vertical pop as a cutter. There's something there. I can't fully write him off, but I also can't get too high on him. Coop, where are you at with Koa? And get anything else you want to say on him off your chest?
This is the kind of guy that I have missed the worst on, I think, in like the time we've done this, where it's like, does he do anything particularly well that I'm like itching to add to my roster? No. But is he like just kind of good enough to stick? And like a coach will see the rotations he makes, or like a coach will see the fact that you can't post up Koa Peat, right? A coach will see these things and like he's not going to get killed in a switch. He's not going to take anything away. And that's kind of enough. And like he can just kind of play. And sometimes there's going to be games where Koa Peat's going to go 8 for 9 and drop 23 points, and he's going to win you the game off the bench because sometimes those minis are going to fall. Sometimes he's just going to like back cut you to death, you know. But when the playoffs show up, unless this guy is really hitting the shots, it's not valuable. I just don't think in the same way. And I think this is also the kind of guy who bad NBA teams, and tend to just like, well, maybe he's got something. He's athletic enough. He can come in and play for us. He'll get the shots. He'll get the chances. He's got such a, everyone will believe in him because of his high school track record and, his pedigree, I think is the term I was looking for. But he's just, I don't know. I really like Koa's someone I really wanted to like coming into the year, coming into the season. But like,
he feels like he would be a great Zach, right? Like that would be a great like upside swings island guy because so much of like traditional draft Twitter would not like this guy, and like whereas like actually we're gonna be the one nerd group that's really in on the old school traditional bucket getting 4-man. That would have been very nice. But I'm with you where I also wanted to like him.
Yeah, he just like Three? No, sorry. I'm looking. I actually pulled up Rondé Hollis Jefferson's stats because you mentioned him, and he is actively better than Koa Peat as a prospect, even as a freshman when he was not good. But like 2.5 block rate and a 1.3 steal rate for a guy who like nobody on this team had like an above 3 steal rate, but like guys were active, guys were in lanes, and he just I don't know. It's really hard
His
for me to
straight
get over
line
that.
athleticism is really bad. Like, like I said, I like his short area athletic quickness and I like his vertical pop in space. His short area quickness is bad. Like it's or not short area, excuse me, straight line athleticism is bad. Short area quickness is good. Like he can't like make a break on balls. He has an awful first step. Like he can't, even though he can kind of dribble, like he can't beat guys downhill off the dribble, even bigger guys like very well. He's pretty much locked into. I'm just gonna have to kind of bully through this guy if he wants to be an effective driver, which there is paths for in the NBA, that being a fine thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you where the lack. It's tough for me to say all this and then look at that stat page and be like, well, but he had no defensive production despite playing plenty, and other guys on his team having defensive production. Toby Awaka played a lot of minutes with Koa Peat. It's not like everything can be blamed on, oh man, he had a low block rate because Montevideo Krivas was behind him. Well, then he should have a higher steal rate because he'd be like, well, I'm going to take more risk. So I agree with you on that. And that's a part of why, again, I just can't be too high on him. He's tough for me. He's tough for me. He's probably going to be at the bottom of that tier of like, guys I expect to be, very low end rotation players. Is that kind of how you view them? Like, where's your, or like with how you do rankings, where do you feel like you will have him ranked?
I think that this is a guy you give a real contract to. Like I think you draft him like 20s, 30s, and you bring this guy in, you give him a real contract, you give him 2, 3 years, you see if like you shove him in the G League and give him a shot doctor, and you just pray something happens. And it's like you're happy if this guy plays on your team because he'll show up some nights and he'll just like grab some rebounds and score some interior buckets when you need them. But like this, I don't like. It's so strange. It's just such a strange watching experience because he's high motor guy who doesn't grab an outlandish amount of rebounds, doesn't block shots, doesn't get steals. So there's nothing special here except for the strength. And the strength was not good enough for him to be like he wasn't beating strong guys. He's just like a bully ball guy. And this is like I really wanted to like you, Koa Pete, but I think I think it's just an instant fade for me. Like I just can't be in on this guy as much as I want to, and he's got some stuff. There's some stuff there that's tantalizing, but top 20 is far too rich for my blood.
Can I throw an evil comp out at you? Is this
Do it.
6'8" Johnny Davis? These are all the exact same things
Oh,
we said about
dude.
Johnny Davis. I was still high on Johnny. I was like, I think he's going to be a really good defender, though, and he's so strong. And the first, for him, it was like the first step is like the secret skill. For Koa, it's like this weird short area quickness. Like, but in the end, it's like this is a mini merchant who just kind of beasted on small, bad college defenders. Like, yeah, I think there's something there. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's probably enough on Koa. Again, I hate to run the A
Yeah.
train up, but I think we're both not fully out, but we're both like this is more of like a second round type of swing. And if he goes back to school, I don't think that'd be bad. I don't know that he can meaningfully change his prospect without just becoming a plus outside shooter. But hopefully he doesn't go back to school because we recorded this podcast. But